Prague has always been called Zlata Praha. Its streets, architectural monuments, and bridges seem to be created for the beauty lovers and appreciators. Indeed, this is a city you want to go back to. As part of the project Treasures of the Cultural Legacy of Uzbekistan in the World Collections, we are glad to introduce you to the Uzbek collections that are stored here. You will find out how they got here, in the heart of Europe. That's what the Czechs call their country. Along with the famous Charles Bridge, one of the landmarks of Prague is the National Museum, which includes the Náprstek Museum of Asian, African, and American cultures. It is named after one of the collectors, Vojta Náprstek, a prominent figure in Czech political and cultural life in the 19th century. His house was the center of the city's artistic life, where numerous objects from all over the world were collected, brought to Prague by travelers and collectors.
These collectors were people, ordinary people, who worked in that area, and one of them was, for example, musician, and other people also the different work, and also travelers. And because they were friends of Vojta Náprstek, they gave it to the museum.
Already in the 60s of the 19th century, on Vojta Náprstek's initiative, the museum was created practically in his house, which was originally called Czech Industrial Museum. His collection also included ethnographic artifacts from Central Asia, particularly from Uzbekistan. Originally, this collection was quite small. However, over more than 150 years of history, thanks to gifts and systematic collecting activities, it has grown up to 400 works of decorative and applied art.
It is an important part of our collection because they belong to the oldest collection of the Náprstek Museum that was created in the 60s of the 19th century. And these collections, some of them belong to this oldest part of the museum collection. These items were collected by people who traveled to Central Asia.
The great interest in Central Asia and its historical figures is illustrated by the fact that back in 1598, the book History of Tamerlane was published in Prague in the Czech language. There, separate chapters were devoted to the birth and youth of Amir Timur, the beginning of his reign and military campaigns, victory of the Turkish Sultan Bayezid, his family, and finally, death. Today, the funds of Náprstek Museum possess collections of almost all types of artifact crafts of Uzbekistan. These are mainly textiles, embroidery, traditional chased products, and jewelry of the 19th and early 20th centuries. The inventory books of the museum contain data that those artifacts were donated to the museum by specific individuals who worked in Central Asia. However, this information is limited to the names of Skorpel Emanuel Merpens, Julius Sayer, Emanuel Fudge. One of the first creators of the Náprstek Central Asian collection is František Hanik. He was the military chaplain of the regiment stationed in the Turkmen city of Mary and the Uzbek city of Katakurgan. Nothing more is known about his personality. However, the archives of the museum preserved the only Hanik letter which he wrote on the Náprstek. It is dated June 6, 1894. And this letter, according to the researchers, is a very valuable document that gives an idea of the Bukhara Emirate during the reign of Abdullah Khan. Katakurgan is located between the cities of Bukhara and Samarkand, 160 versts for the first, 67 versts to the second. The city itself has 1,200 Russian inhabitants, while there are about 15,000 local residents. Bukhara, which I have recently visited, is a huge Asian city with the mud-built houses and narrow streets and with the winter palace of the emir located in the center. The emir's brother is an officer in the Russian army, and his son is studying in the Cadets Corps in St. Petersburg. As for folk art, Bukhara women are famous embroideries. I will look for an opportunity to fulfill your request. I am the only Czech here. The museum is proud of its embroideries brought from Uzbekistan. Bukhara Ruja made in the second half of the 19th century. Samarkand Oypalaki. Tashkent Jainamaz and Nurata Suzani. From time immemorial, embroidery has played a huge role in wedding ceremonies and has always been an integral part of the dowry. Traditional patterns, motifs, and compositions passed down from generation to generation also adorned numerous skull caps. The skull cap is one of the oldest items in the Uzbek collection of Prague Museum. There is not a single millimeter of free background on its surface. The filigree embroidery here is like jewelry work. In the east, the small cross stitch is called iraqi. It creates the impression of blooming garden. Interestingly, the Tashkent skull cap, which the museum acquired in 1863, became the first item in the Central Asian artifacts collection. Clothes made from cotton and silk, which were in great demand on the Great Silk Road, were also decorated with embroidery. According to the 10th century Uzbek historian Muhammad Mirhashi, Uzbek textiles were exported to Baghdad and Khorasan, Syria and Egypt, Iran and India. He noted, all of them had such a high value that it was possible to pay the entire land tax of Bukhara only with the proceeds of one woven cotton. The collection of the Naprostek Museum includes the unique paranja made in the early 20th century. It has been preserved practically in its original form, and apparently it belonged to a woman of high social status. The paranja is made of silk and trimmed with embroidery. However, as a rule, its lining was made of cotton fabric. Jewelry has always been an integral part of the Eastern woman's outfit. This collection features silver jewelry from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Gold was rarely used due to its high value. However, from the late 19th century, the jewelers mastered the technique of gilding. This necklace was created in the 19th, and it's richly embellished with granulation and red corals. The museum's collections contain several amulets from the late 19th century called tomar, which were very popular among women and children. Prayers and spells, objects of magical significance, cones, salt, coal, which were supposed to protect against evil forces, and the evil eye were placed into these silver boxes. One of the most valuable exhibitions of this collection, which testifies to the high level of the court decorative and applied art of Uzbekistan, is a horse cover embroidered with gold. It was acquired almost a century ago. In the 20s of the last century, gold embroidered horse covers and robes were primarily owned by the emir and the court aristocracy. From 1885 to 1911, 2 court and 25 private workshops worked in Bukhara, where hereditary craftsmen created gold embroidered items for the nobility and as gifts. But the art of gold embroidery has fascinated Europeans long before the time. Back in 1406, in his diaries, the Spanish ambassador Ruy González de Clavija described magnificent gold embroidered garments worn at the court of Amir Timur. Dishes made of metal also indicated the high standard of living and wealth of their owners. In the 19th century, Metal smelting and forging reached an artistic level in many urban centers of Uzbekistan. These kumgans, chaydish, and oftoba were generally made of copper and brass. In 1887, the museum acquired a metal-encrusted hookah, chilim. One of the outstanding types of folk art of Uzbekistan is ceramics. Since ancient times, there have been dozens of famous ceramic centers of the territory of the country. Glazed ceramics were manufactured in the cities and regional centers of Samarkand and Bukhara, the Fergana Valley, and Khwarezm. Each of the ceramic centers had its own preferences in ornamentation and colors. Lead glaze was used in Gijduan and Katakurgan, Tashkent and Shahrisabz. These are dishes of brown, yellow, and green colors. Ceramics of blue and turquoise shades were created in the workshops of Rishtan, the Fergana Valley, and Hiva. Alkali glaze, ishkar, was used here. Ornament motifs were full of symbols and good wishes, as it can be seen on Rishtan dish created in the first half of the 20th century. In Czech art history, the monographs by Tereza Hychlarova and Dagmar Pospisilova, published in English and Czech, became the first fundamental studies of the arts and crafts of Central Asia. The first of these, Czech Travelers and Collectors in Central Asia, was published in 2012, and the second, titled Artistic Crafts of Central Asia, in 2014. Today, Czech scientists continue their research within the framework of the project Cultural Legacy of Uzbekistan in the World Collections. Oriental wisdom says that the most important thing is reputation. While getting acquainted with the Uzbek works of applied art stored in the Prague National Museum, I have become convinced that the reputation of Uzbek art is very high. Not only does the museum store these works, they are a point of pride. They are described as a genuine masterpieces. It was the project Treasures of the Cultural Legacy of Uzbekistan in the World Collections.